Good evening, folks. Welcome back to the Captain Logan Show. It's me, Captain Logan, as the name implies. And joining me, as always, is my wonderful chat moderator and producer, DJ Martinez. DJ, more big DC developments. I gotta tell you, Zaslav and Gunn are just in my dreams now.
Wow, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
They invade my every waking and sleeping moment. It's all we do here now.
Well, did you say Zaslav?
Yeah, with Zaslav and Gunn, all these guys related to DC. It's all we do now.
That's all we do. I mean, we could have called this like part 7, part 8.
We're up to 12 or 13 at this point. Yeah. No, it began with the Zaslav wave. Now it's turning into the Gunn reckoning.
The Gunn saga.
We got names for everything here. Welcome, everybody. Thanks a lot for being here. If you're watching live, thanks for watching after the fact. If you're doing that, we've got a bunch to cover tonight, so I'm going to jump into things here pretty quickly. Tonight's lead-in topic is, as I alluded to, going to be about all the developments that we got yesterday from The Hollywood Reporter about things that are apparently not moving forward at DC, things that may or may not be getting greenlit pretty soon. We're going to have more information about this within the next week or two. It sounds like almost certainly. It's sounding like Gunn probably is going to have a meeting with Zaslav, pitching him a big story plan with a lot of the projects that they'll be doing over the next several years. Of course, he has a 4-year contract and is likely to, if things go well, stick around after that. And so we'll probably get a slate or at least several official announcements. There's a little bit of question about how much of what was reported in the Hollywood Reporter is actually for sure going to happen. We're going to, and to be fair to them, they reported a lot of things kind of trepidatiously. Like the only thing that is absolutely for certain, it seems like, is the cancellation of Wonder Woman 3. But there is a lot of, this is likely what's going on based on several people on the inside, several sources that we've heard from, and so, they're doing their due diligence, it sounds like, and trying not to jump the gun too much, but jump the gun, I can't even say that anymore, but there are a lot of fans that I think are jumping the gun a little bit, going, oh, look, here's a thing that's definitely happening. We've got to kind of take some of this, I don't want to say with a grain of salt, but just keep in mind that we're not exactly in rumor territory, but we don't know everything yet, and we're gonna, so I'm gonna do a lot of reading tonight. We're gonna read some of that Hollywood Reporter article, and then we're also gonna read Gunn's response, in which he says that some of that is absolutely certainly happening, some of it is, they've got it half right, some of it they don't have right at all, and some of it they've not decided if it's right, which was kind of a great quote. So we'll look at that and the other tweets that he put out about that. That's going to be the lead-in topic and probably a lot of what we're going to be focusing on this evening. But as always, you can also ask me anything that you want to under the sun within reason, and we can continue chatting about that if that's what the direction that the questions lead us. But if you want to talk about other stuff, feel free to leave comments as well. I also want to say that the Game Awards are today, and we just got an announcement about a Hellboy game that is in the Mike Mignola style, and I want to thank
That's awesome.
both Malik and Austin for sending me the trailer. I haven't had a chance to see it yet because I was stuck in traffic trying to get back for this show when I saw that, so I was a responsible driver and didn't watch a video game trailer in my car, but I imagine Tuesday or Thursday next week, we could be talking about some game trailers. Well, I say Tuesday, probably Thursday. DJ and I right now are kicking around doing a mini marathon next Tuesday, possibly about Power Rangers Dino Thunder, to do a kind of tribute to Jason David Frank. We did a video hours after we found out about his passing the morning of, but we really wanted to do something kind of fun just to commemorate his life and work, and because it's an excuse for us to finally talk about Dino Thunder, which I've been meaning to do content on forever and ever. So tentatively, that's what we're thinking about doing right now for Tuesday. But sorry, DJ, that just came to my brain. I just remember we were talking about that, and I'm like, oh, if we're talking about game trailers, we're gonna have to push that off to next Thursday probably.
No, that's really cool. I didn't know about that. I'm gonna have to check that trailer out. I love Hellboy, although I don't know the comics, so that'll be cool to get that version finally.
Yeah, it's exciting. As always, you can leave and now see, since they're doing that with Mike Mignola, DJ. Now all I want is Santa Luco Ninja Turtles,
Yeah.
but like a good game in that art style. Folks, you can leave a super chat in any dollar amount, and that guarantees that we'll talk about your topic or question. And thanks to everybody who has done or ever will do that. You guys are wonderful. Thanks for keeping the train running here on Geekvolution and making it possible for me to do this as full time as I can. And you can also leave a regular comment. We'll try not to shaft those if at all possible. Not begging for cash. Again, really appreciate folks that do that, but it's a big deal just that you're here and listening to us, and especially if you participate in any way, make sure to direct your questions to DJ Martinez, because he is going to be reading those, of course, and you can tag at DJ Martinez, at The Welder, or at Wishes I Knew More About Hellboy. Okay, it's time now to talk about further more of these DC developments. So this was the big article from Hollywood Reporter yesterday. This was exclusive. Everybody's been talking about this. Patty Jenkins' Wonder Woman 3 not moving forward as DC movies hit turning point. The big question, as I stated it in the title tonight, is, am I getting what I've been asking for, DJ? At the end of the day, is this going to turn into more of a full-on reboot? A lot of the things that we're going to read about here, that we're learning, if any of it at all is what is happening, is simultaneously, to me, kind of surprising, because it seemed more and more like Gunn was going to be stuck, or I guess deciding to be stuck with a lot of the baggage of the DCEU, and that he wasn't going to full-on reboot. And at the same time, not altogether surprising either, because this seems a lot less counterintuitive to me than what it was sounding like when he initially took the job. Like there's a part of me, DJ, that's going, well, of course he's recasting Wonder Woman if that's happening, and of course they're not going to move forward with Cavill, and because the DCEU has been met overall with kind of lukewarm reception, and it's a confusing, muddled mess overall continuity-wise. Why, if you don't have to, would you stay, harnessed to that? But it doesn't look like he's going to, straight up from the beginning, get rid of everything. And so more and more, it looks to me like what we're probably going to see, and there's even speculation in this article toward the end about whether it might be what I always said it should be, which is he's just going to scrap everything. I think we're going to have two or a few movies in this, what the Hollywood Reporter is calling awkward transition phase, that get us there. So there might be some casting that sticks around, especially with Amanda Waller and stuff. But I think what's probably going to happen is we're going to get a couple of movies that transition us into a crisis that resets the universe, so that we can use any actors that we want to, and any kind of continuity that we want to. But let's go ahead and start looking at this article, shall we? I'm not going to read this entire thing down, but just the major stuff that we know about. Multiple sources tell the Hollywood Reporter that Patty Jenkins' Wonder Woman 3 is not moving forward and is considered dead in its current incarnation. Sources say Jenkins recently submitted her treatment, co-written with Jeff Johns, and I forgot that Johns was co-writing that. If that movie is definitely not being made now, and well, I mean, I guess this part is definitely not happening. Since that's the case, I hope at some point that script gets released. Gunn and Safran, as well as Warner Brothers Pictures co-chairs DeLuca and Abney, broke the news to the filmmaker, well, at least she didn't find out along with the rest of us, which happens sometimes.
Like the Batgirl crew.
Broke the news to the filmmaker, telling her the project as it stood That phrase is interesting. Did not fit in with the new but still unfolding plans. Jenkins directed and co-wrote the previous 2 movies, of course, as we know. And while costs are not a factor, insiders say that DC Studios will not have any overburdensome financial restrictions. The studio could end up saving tens of millions of dollars by not making the 3rd installment, because Godot was on track for a $20 million payday for Wonder Woman 3, while Jenkins would have received $12 million. There's a part of me that never understands or appreciates why an actor gets paid more than the person that is making the film. Those figures don't include any possible back-end bonuses. It's unclear how any future Wonder Woman movie and Godot's portrayal of the hero would fit into the new DC plan, of course. In a bit of head-scratching timing, Godot tweeted out of the blue a thank you to fans Tuesday, which I read yesterday, saying she was grateful to be allowed to play the heroine and role model, adding, "Can't wait to share the next chapter with you." It was, or her next chapter with you. It was unclear whether or not the actress knew the project was being toe-tagged. And if you just read that a couple of days ago, you would probably assume, oh, that means that they've got a script together and it's in pre-production and it's starting to get going. What do you make of that, DJ? What do you think the odds are that at the time she wrote that, she thought that it was still proceeding as planned? Because the timing of this is weird. Jenkins was delivering a script. Or do you think there's any chance that it was this kind of cryptic goodbye letter?
I think it was. She knew this was coming and wanted to get ahead of it and be like, hey, I can't wait to play this character again.
Boy, that's really misleading, though. I don't know why you would write it like that if you knew you were getting axed, where you're like, I can't wait to share the next chapter. And then 2 days later, we find out there's not going to be one.
Well, because these days, if there's enough fan cry, they can save her. Well, she's not necessarily being axed. The treatment for that film has been rejected.
Yes.
Because it didn't fit in with their plan. But there could even be another Patty Jenkins helmed. It's just that treatment was rejected. So maybe they could write a new one. Maybe she could still be playing Wonder Woman. That movie's canceled. Who knows if there'll be everyone is like jumping the gun and be like, there's no Wonder Woman 3. It's completely gone. But we don't know that much yet.
We don't actually know that for sure, and I'm glad that you said that, because, like I said, the most interesting phrase there, and this is coming from The Hollywood Reporter and not from anybody in sight, of course, so, grain of salt, but the most interesting phrase there was, as it stands. Like, she turns in a script, and then Gunn is in Saffron already making plans. Well, we can't use this script because it's too in line with Aquaman and Shazam and all the things that we're going to put out, but then afterwards we're taking things in new directions. Not that they're necessarily connected to all of that. I'm just saying that one of 2 things is happening. Either we really are wiping the floor overall ultimately clean, and we are going to do a lot of recasting to create something closer to definitive versions of some of these characters in Gunn's mind, or because, as you say, it's not the project that's being axed, it's that script. Having said that, my prediction, DJ, is that the fans jumping the gun on this actually are correct, and Jenkins and Godot are out. So, like you said, I don't want to make that assumption, but that's my prediction. I think that actually will ultimately end up being the case. And I'm going to have to get ahead of myself for a second to back that up. But there's a lot of ifs here. If it is true that, is this the very next part of this article? Are we going to be reading about this in a second? No, it's not. So I'm going to jump the gun for a second. If it ultimately ends up being true that Mamoa is no longer playing Aquaman post Aquaman 2, and that he is going to stick around but be playing a new character who is Lobo. Then the Wonder Woman news probably isn't just the treatment as it stands, but is she's out and that project is done. I think, because why would you keep certain actors that were in that iteration of the Justice League, but not others. Now, you could argue, well, the first Wonder Woman movie was successful. The second was met with lukewarm reception and didn't do as well as at the box office, but people like that actress. Yeah, but Aquaman made $1 billion, and like, whether that's what you or I want for that character, DJ, it seems to be accepted overall en masse, and did better than Wonder Woman did. So it would be very strange if she's still in, but Mamoa gets recast as Lobo. So do you agree with that? If the Lobo news is true, Wonder Woman is done.
Yeah, well, yeah, if they're getting rid of everybody, like it's so weird. Why would they not? It's so weird that Henry Cavill teaser at the end of Black Adam just happened, and then he might be. It's so awkward.
I think that gets. The thing is, that's coming out in the theater in the midst of all of this happening, and I don't think, am I remember the timeline right? I don't think we'd had the announcement of Gunn and Safran the week Shazam came out. I think that was just after, was it not?
I think you're right. I think it must have been just before they took the helm, which is so unfortunate.
Yeah, or maybe we got that news just before that movie came to the theater, but it was, the machine was turning and it was too late to do anything about it. Like, don't you think if Shazam comes out a month after that news, that cameo is axed?
Yeah, they just cut that scene.
Because there's already talk, and I think it's in this article. Again, I'm not going to read everything in this article, but I think that there's, again, I think it's in here, but there's been some talk that Cavill has a cameo in, is it Shazam or one of the other DC movies coming out next year, and that might get taken out of the movie before it comes out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and it's weird because I heard some, I guess, conflicting things with that, where it said that Shazam was completely unfazed by this news and it was kind of untouched and it was just coming out as usual. So I don't know. There's so much. We're in rumor territories.
Yeah, we certainly are when it comes to that stuff. Let me get back to this article. There's so much to unpack here. Okay, so then we. Oh no, I'm sorry. The cameo is in Flash. It's not Shazam.
Yes, I did hear that. They speculated that they will be removing.
That's what I was
several
talking about.
cameos from that movie to try to. Not to try to temper expectations so people don't think all these things are coming and then they're not.
The rest of the DC slate remains in flux, or at least is being, I'm reading again from this article now, or at least is being kept deep in a pocket of Gunn's own utility belt. I don't love the cutesiness of some of this article writing, by the way. It was like, and he's, at work in the Batcave, and I'm like, just write your article. But there are several rumors and possible scenarios to consider ahead of next week's meeting. The first, which builds on the shuttering of Jenkins' Wonder Woman 3. I mean, DJ, even this article seems to be jumping the gun in assuming that movie is definitely not happening and that it isn't just that iteration of it. So, yeah, I still don't think we can know that for sure. And the hero is cast by filmmaker Zack Snyder for his Justice League. This one sees the shutting down of Man of Steel 2 which is funny because we just talked about that as an announcement like 3 months ago, with returning Henry Cavill and having no more Aquaman fronted by Jason Mamoa. These characters are to cameo in The Flash, which comes out June 16. Cavill shot his part of the cameo in September, but sources say there's also a debate inside the studio as to whether or not to keep the cameo, and if its inclusion promises something that studio would have no plans on delivering. But who cares? We just did that, like you said, with Shazam. I think all three of the movies coming out next year, unless Blue Beetle is unfazed enough by the rest of the DCEU that if that's popular, Gunn can get away with just keeping it around and making a direct sequel to it. We know very little about that movie so far, and I keep forgetting to even talk about it because I keep forgetting that's even coming out next year. We have a whopping 3 DC movies coming out next year that will be relics entirely by the time they come out. There's a part of me that thinks that DC should put a disclaimer in front of each of those movies that's like, these don't count anymore. This is just a movie. Like, don't get excited about anything. We're not making any more of this stuff. Like, you get to the end of it, it's Aquaman will not return.
They should do what Disney did for Disney Plus, where they put all the old Marvel movies and they called them Marvel Legacy films. They should call these. They should put a banner at the front of these called DC Legacy.
And wouldn't that be amazing as it's coming out in the theater?
Yeah.
I mean, let's pause for a second and speculate about this for a minute, DJ. Don't you think that the news that Gunn is taking things in a radically different direction, and that a lot of these franchise movies will not have, like, continue to be a franchise afterwards, at least in this iteration, that's got to affect box office to some degree.
Yeah, I mean, I'll like it if we just make movies again. That would be great.
No, but what I'm saying is, like, I'll still go, of course, and I bet a lot of people will, especially out of curiosity, but these franchise films, especially with superhero, this is why everything's got after credit scenes now. Constantly making a big deal out of what might be happening next. It sometimes feels like it's not even about the movie you're watching now, but about what it's leading up to. And these things, it's sounding more and more like aren't leading to anything anymore. It's the end of what we've been doing, even though they weren't initially made that way. Like, The Flash was supposed to be, it looked like a major transition film to get us to some other direction. Now that's a relic of another time, and Gunn's probably not going to be building on anything it does at all, even if that movie does Flashpoint and sort of soft reboots in and of itself. It's going to kind of be its own thing. You're going to have Aquaman 2. Oh, no, I guess we're going to have 4 next year, because you're going to have Aquaman 2, and you're going to have Shazam, Fury of the Gods, I think it's called, and then did I say Aquaman 2?
And then Flash.
Yeah. So and Blue Beetle.
So
with the possible outside chance exception of Blue Beetle, all of these are sequels to movies or spin-offs to things that are all about continuing to build franchises that we're not going to have anymore. And knowing that, I would think would have to affect box office to some degree.
Yeah, definitely for the people that are in the know, for the big fans. Some people still just go, hey, there's another Aquaman movie, and they just go watch it, and that crowd will be fine. But yeah, like, I don't know. Expectations are going to be really weird next year. Someone in the chat says, I think Mitale, this is the first year that there will be more DCEU films than there will be Marvel films in this year.
Yeah, and none of them are going to count. It's fascinating.
Maybe Blue Beetle will. James Gunn just posted a Blue Beetle poster on his Twitter recently, Alex Barron says. So that might be part of his plan, he says.
Yeah. And I do think that there's a good chance of that, depending on what that movie ends up looking like. That's going to be the only one that Warner's and Gunn should pay any attention to, really, as far as letting it affect their plans moving forward with regards to performance. You certainly...
What if that starts their universe? Blue Beetle starts the new DC universe.
Yeah, well, I don't think... Again, when in the title I said, are we going to get a full-on reboot? I mean, soft reboot where, like, eventually you could do anything you want to. I don't think that they're going to take something like Blue Beetle, DJ, and then axe everything else and just move forward from there. I think they're going to have to do some kind of universe... destroying, rebuilding movie. I think Crisis is almost certainly upon us, or some iteration of it. I'd be really surprised if they didn't do something like that.
I guess we'll see. And you just did a whole speculation podcast about this whole topic right before all this news came out, which ties into our first super chat, which is hilarious. I'll get to that in a second, but...
I'm trying to decide where I want to take everything here because, again, there's just so much to talk about. Let me get back to this article and mention a couple of other things real quick. Warner Brothers was indeed developing a sequel for Man of Steel, which we knew about, and the director of The Flash, Andy Muschietti, was hoping to direct it and was hoping he could take it into something closer to a Donner tone, and now that's definitely not happening, which is honestly at this point, again, fine by me. We've had this conversation a million times, but as much as I think, just in case you haven't heard me say this before, as much as it would have been nice to see Henry Cavill finally get his due and get to play that character the way he wants to play it. Like, it is a travesty for him, but for me, best case scenario is still more or less start over. So this is good news for me, just with what I personally want, but I totally understand people that don't feel that way, and there's going to be a lot of different opinions about this. So I've been hearing today from folks that are happy about the likely now recasting of pretty much everybody, at least with the big superheroes, and folks that liked the casting even if they didn't with like Godot and Momoa, etc. Even if they didn't care for some of the things that the DCEU has done with it, but it would be confusing, and I think you're still stuck with some baggage if you keep them around but attempt to reboot. That was a suggestion that I heard thrown out by a couple people, where it's like, well, why can't we just keep these actors around and do kind of the Ghost Rider thing and straight up reboot? It's been too long. The universe has been around for 9 years and keeps getting like kind of pseudo reset, or bits of it getting retconned over and over again. And I don't think, with the possible exception of Cavill, even though we didn't get to see him do enough with that role, I don't think, and this is just my personal opinion, of course, that any of the casting choices for the major DC superheroes it felt like definitive comic book. It all felt like the kind of like Snyder version of that universe, as opposed to something like the MCU, which is arguably a little bit more. You can imagine this being the only version of this stuff. I never had that with the Snyderverse. As much as I liked Affleck's casting, although I think it had less to do with Affleck and more to do with the aesthetic of going Dark Knight Returns with their Batman, that never felt definitive Batman to me. And especially Momoa doesn't with Aquaman. Dude bro Aquaman never would have wanted for that character.
Yeah, closest thing for me is Wonder Woman. I really, really liked her, and as much as I didn't like the second movie at all, I really did like the first one, so I was a little disappointed to not get another movie with her, but it's fine. Whatever we can salvage is fine at this point.
Yeah.
It's been so long since that first movie, I'm not super attached to it anymore.
Well, and is it okay that I have both of those opinions? I like that movie a lot, but I always thought that casting was counterintuitive. So, like, she shocked me with her performance in that, because based on BVS, I didn't think Gal Gadot just could act, at least as a superhero. And people said she was good in other stuff, but I never saw her in anything else. I guess retroactively she was fine in Murder on the Orient Express. She's got a small role in that. But I think
she's in the second one. She's in the second one.
Oh, that's right. Okay. You know what? I must be thinking of some other performance I saw her in, because I haven't seen that second one, and I guess I was conflating her with the Ray actress, but I knew she could act. So I don't know why I was thinking that. But anyway, I don't know if I've ever seen Godot in anything else, now that I'm thinking about it. But I digress. So yeah, she won me over a lot with that movie, but it still didn't feel definitive casting to me. Like, It's still weird that all of the Amazons are stuck trying to do her accent, and she still seems too small for that character. I still think you need somebody with more of a Xena build, and I'm hoping that we finally get to see somebody that obviously has good acting chops, but also looks a little bit more built like the character.
Yeah.
This is pipe dream stuff. I mean, if that second movie had been as good as the first, I would probably be more disappointed with this. But and as much as I like Patty Jenkins directing in that first movie, and I think she's overall a good director, kind of big misstep with that second one. So I can't be, too frustrated with that.
Yeah, same.
Also unlikely is a sequel to Black Adam, and thank God, despite the hype surrounding the movie of launching a new corner of DC, a lot of it led by star Dwayne Johnson. Yeah, that's what we call manufactured hype. The movie has only grossed $385 million worldwide, and insiders at the studio say the movie, which cost more than $190 million to produce, will be lucky to break even considering ancillary revenue. And I can't remember what the source was. I read an article the other day that was going against this really hard and downplaying the lack of success with Black Adam and saying, well, here's examples of other things that have only broken even and a studio goes ahead and greenlights a sequel, so like it doesn't actually have to make money. And my response to that is, if it's true, that is a depressing state of things. Like, we're in this place now with Hollywood where studios might think that it's less risky to release a sequel to a movie that barely got its money back, DJ, than to try something new.
I still have not seen Black Adam. Don't think I ever will.
It's not good, and I don't think, and it's just not the kind of stuff that I don't like that Dwayne Johnson seemed to kind of force himself into that as a star vehicle, and that he didn't, just because he seems, kind of full of himself and really wants to be the lead of a superhero movie, he wouldn't even be in a Shazam movie and had no interest in Shazam's arch nemesis ever being in a Shazam movie, and made a big deal out of Black Adam's gonna fight Superman. I'm like, here's an idea. How about you have Black Adam fight his arch enemy? Like, when does that? Oh, never? Okay, just because you want to look as important as possible. Tuesday, I teased the thing that I really want Gunn to cast Dwayne Johnson as DJ, but I forgot to mention it in that show, so I'm going to do it now. You know what I want to happen? And I don't think this will happen, but it is possible, I guess, that if the Mamoa thing especially is happening, where he gets recast as a different character, I think it would be amazing if Dwayne Johnson played, like, totally against type and was somebody like Mixelplick. I think that'd be fantastic, because I think Dwayne Johnson has comedy chops, and really the only stuff I've cared for him in has been comedies. I like him in the Jumanji movies fine. Mm-hmm. And I think it would be really funny if big, giant, beefy guy who works out all the time and everybody thinks is taking steroids was Mixelplick. And Mixelplick's just like, I mean, I can look like anything I want to, so I'm going to be The Rock.
I think you should go over to Marvel and play the new Professor X. Really like to see him flex his acting chops in a wheelchair. See what he could do.
I would have a lot of respect for him if he would agree to do that, even though that's not the casting that I would go with, of course. Mamoa, meanwhile, could emerge as a pivotal figure in the new plans, even as he is allegedly or ostensibly being dropped as Aquaman. The character of Lobo has been mentioned in connection with Mamoa, and that's perfect casting. It would be kind of weird to go directly from Aquaman to that. Like, he would have to give such a different performance. But if we can all just kind of ignore the fact that he ever played Aquaman, it's good casting. Whether you really care that much about Lobo or not. But this is a good point this article makes. The character is an outsider, an anti-hero, and is keeping in mind with Gunn's specialty of taking the offbeat and quirky and flipping it into crowd-pleasing fare. The question, of course, is how much of the DC slate moving forward will be those kinds of movies, and how much of it will be actually traditional, again, definitive major heavy hitter kinds of superhero movies with your Supermans and your Wonder Womans, et cetera, et cetera. And I still think he'll do both, but the point that article makes suggests to me that Gunn might actually be wanting to work with Mamoa himself, and that if Lobo is in a movie, be it a Lobo movie or a movie with Lobo as the villain, that might be the next thing or one of the first things that Gunn himself tries to make. And so that would be my prediction, is if the Lobo thing is true, Gunn wants to make that. as opposed to just everything the new DCU is doing. DCEU, whatever, is doing, will all be just Guardians-esque anti-hero or misfit type movies. I don't think we're going that direction where that's all they want to make.
Alex Barron in the chat. Dwayne Johnson as Wonder Woman. There's an Amazon build for you.
Okay, so let's read a little bit about, let's read some of Gunn's response to this, also from The Hollywood Reporter. And I like that they reported on this, where they're like, okay, we made an article yesterday, and then he came out and said that we were like half right. James Gunn says DC plan will build upon what has worked and rectify what has not, which, by the way, I think is a thing that he's said before, which kind of suggests a have our cake and eat it too mentality, and that's why I was real quick to say, and partly because of the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, surely, even though I want a full-on reboot, that's not what he's doing. But because he said before, well, we want to take what is actually going well and not throw it away. But if they're getting rid of Momoa as Aquaman, and they're, well, and I guess Cavill's not a good example because he hasn't been in anything that actually performed as well as they wanted it to, but people like him as Superman. But especially with the Aquaman thing, that suggests that when Gunn says we want to hang on to what's working, he doesn't necessarily mean just financially. So let's read what he says. This was his first tweet. As for the story yesterday in The Hollywood Reporter, like I alluded to earlier, some of it is true, some of it is half true, some of it is not true, and some of it we haven't decided yet whether it's true or not. Although this first month at DC has been fruitful, building the next 10 years of story takes time, and we're still just beginning. And he goes on to say, Peter and I chose to helm DC Studios knowing we were coming into a fractious environment, both in the stories being told and in the audience itself, and there would be an unavoidable transitional period as we moved into telling a cohesive story across film, TV, animation, and gaming, which people have been finding really interesting, that he wants to even make video games that are canonical and in the same universe. But in the end, the drawback of that transitional period the drawbacks were dwarfed by the creative possibilities and the opportunity to build upon what has worked in DC so far and help rectify what is not. We know we are not going to make every single person happy every step of the way, but we can promise everything we do is done in the service of the story, all caps, and in the service of the DC characters we know you cherish and we have cherished our whole lives. I like how relatively transparent he's being, where he's not saying I walked into a thing that was hunky-dory and bright and great and I'm just going to carry the torch forward. He's like, he said fractious environment, and it tells you something, I think, that the state that Warner's is in, that he can talk that candidly just after he gets that job and not have to worry about keeping that job.
Well, I think he's going to have to stop doing that at some point, because he's always been just like flat out open and honest on his Twitter about this kind of stuff. And now that he's running the company, I think he's probably going to stop doing that as often as he has been.
But wouldn't it be cool if he didn't have to and you had a company that was that transparent?
Yeah, but that's just, I don't know. That's gonna get sticky with the way people respond to stuff sometimes when he just responds quickly to things. Like, I don't know, that might get him into some trouble. Obviously I think it's good to be, transparent, but it's just weird that, like, you don't see, I mean, Kevin Feige's like the master of saying a bunch of stuff and never saying anything. So I think Gunn's going to have to get better at that if he's going to run the company for a little bit.
Maybe so, or at the very least, avoid just fights and things on Twitter. And to be honest with you, he is, he's candid and he'll just say what's on his mind, but it would be, but he's not actually really picking fights with people. He's just not avoiding them either. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, he'll respond straight up to people who send trolls. Like, he responds to trolls all the time, and I don't know if he should keep doing that. But
let's talk about this for a second. The way he handles his social media, I think, is both ballsy and also, but maybe like overly so, unnecessarily so. Like it's also kind of reckless. If I had gotten, and I said this back when it happened, if I had been fired from a job that was like a huge job that I loved, and I wasn't gonna be allowed to make my last Guardians movie. And I realized it all worked out ultimately, but I'm talking about when that happened, and there was no reason for him to think he would possibly get it back. And it was over a tweet that I put out 10 years ago. I would delete all of my social media and never post anywhere ever again. And he just doubled down. He just stuck around, and like, I admire it to some degree, where he's like, look, I'm a more mature person now. I don't need to, apologize for things I said a million years ago. Like, I'm not saying that stuff now, and I don't think it should have gotten me fired, but he didn't throw a hissy fit. He was a sympathetic protagonist in literary terms, and then he just kept tweeting, and he kept talking like he always did, and I'm like, I'm impressed by that, but it's not what I would do. But I don't think famous people or public people should really have Twitter accounts at all.
Yeah, he'll go like back and forth with someone who's just like ranting about his movie. It's like, who cares? Like, that's just one person being annoying. Like, I don't know why he gets into the things he gets into sometimes.
How does he have the time either? And he won't after this, right? He's gonna continue making movies, and I am assuming Peacemaker is getting another season, and he's gonna be involved in that, and he's gonna be heading these. There's no way he's sitting around answering tweets after this, right? But he has so far.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's an insomniac and he just stays up all night responding to haters. But yeah, I don't think he'll have time to do that for much longer.
And he does it in a classy way without, missing punches or anything.
No, he's doing a good job of it. I think his energy could just be better spent. Doing something creative.
No, I agree.
But he must just really enjoy it, I'm sure.
Yeah, I guess so. It clearly doesn't, affect him negatively. It doesn't seem to mess with his energy or anything. It doesn't seem to make him doubt himself, or like it does a lot of us. And if it does, you can't tell. One of my favorite, not that I read everything he puts on Twitter, but sometimes Austin's a big Gunn fan, and he sends me tweets sometimes. And one of my favorites that Austin sent me was, somebody said, I just need you to promise me that you'll do something with Condiment King. And his response was simply, no. DJ, we are already 43 minutes into the show. Let's go ahead and start taking some questions, shall we?
All right. Shall we go to the phones?
Absolutely. Well, no, don't say that, because we've done those shows. We're not going to actually go to the phones. Not this time.
Phones. Just the text. First super chat I got was from Checkers the Inventor, $5.
Oh, hi, Checkers. It's been a little while since we've seen him. What's up, man?
He says, I literally just finished your speculation cast before all this news broke. Way off. Thanks for wasting my time and now my money. Unsubscribed.
Oh, well, thanks for that last super chat, though, since we'll never see you again, Checkers. I appreciate that. I asked Austin about that earlier today. I was like, so do you kind of wish that we had somehow waited to do that speculation cast until we'd gotten this information? And he was like, nah, it was kind of more interesting not knowing all of this and trying to guess at some of it. It's weird because
speculation casts are always like time
in the moment
capsules. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we could do another one now. Now that we know as much more as we do. Obviously, I wouldn't do that again until we had the slate. And even then, I don't think I'm going to turn right around and do another one. I'm not saying that, but you could. I mean, right now, you could have this conversation on a weekly or at least a twice a month basis and have very different conversations. That would only be relevant for about 24 hours. But
sorry, Checkers. Sorry they wasted your time.
But I know he's joking.
Yeah, I know too.
There's definitely a lot of stuff that we suggested there that has, because a lot of that conversation was what characters and teams and things do you think they're likely to go to? I think a lot of that still stands. And like one of the big things on my list that I thought they would do very quickly was Lobo. Called that. I also, or at least it looks like I called that. Also, which is not an impressive call or anything because that's a character he's talked about wanting to do. But So I don't mean to pat myself on the back. I'm just saying that, well, that's kind of relevant. But also there are there are things that I wish I'd been. I'm trying to think of the right way to put it. A little bit more confident about that seem to be actually maybe happening now. Where I kept going, well, I can't think that there's any chance I'll get what I want, and it's going to ultimately be a full-on reboot. So I have to put it within the context of the DCEU we've had already. Oh wait, no, I don't, and something closer to what I wanted may actually be happening. So now I wish I'd gone in maybe both directions, where it's like, if it's a reboot, this is what I'm hoping for. And if it's not, this is what I'm hoping for. Because now, especially if we do the Crisis thing, we could reinvent a lot of characters that we've already put on screen that I would like to see done closer to the way I've loved them in comics, like the Birds of Prey, for instance.
All right, Mutale,
Hi there.
super chat here. How giddy was Austin at WW3 being canceled?
Extremely. Yeah, he sent me a message, this is great news. And of course, I wasn't, as ecstatic about that as he was, because I actually like the first Wonder Woman movie. He thinks it's terrible. He's got it on, I think at one point he put it on a top 10 worst superhero movies list, and I don't understand that, but everybody's
It's one of
entitled
the
to their
best
opinion.
DC movies we have. What is he talking about?
I think so too. He doesn't see it. He thinks it's god-awful. We've argued about it, but it's funny. But I personally was sort of giddy, just because, again, that means that we're getting rid of more of this stuff in general. And hopefully, I won't be as excited if we don't replace it with something I like, obviously, but.
All right. We just got a $5 donation from Jerf E. Patron, a.k.a. Jeffrey Patron. Thank you so
Jeffrey.
much.
What's up, man?
No question, just a donation.
Oh, appreciate you, man.
Just
it's good to see you.
Always good to see Jeffrey. Love that guy.
Yeah, we need to have him on again. It's been a long time.
Yeah, I follow him on Letterboxd, and he's been watching some things, been leaving some reviews. I've been listening to him. Good guy. Let me see. Next one, Senior Sticks, $2. The Sonyverse may save us all, Cap and DJ. Maybe.
In what way? What do you mean?
It's just going to save cinema.
Oh. Wouldn't hold my breath about that. I think this new DC universe has a better chance at doing that than the Sonyverse.
Marvel and DC are down. Sony's going to swoop in with their verse and save us all.
Yeah, I think just based on the news that Gunn is taking over and people being hyped about what might be happening moving forward, it makes DC automatically a lot less down, at least, perceptually. With people. Like I said earlier, probably going to affect the box office when you have all these movies that come out that we're not going to do anything with moving forward. On the other hand, if people are just generally more positive about the future of DC movies, DJ, it actually could have a positive impact on it. I guess I don't know for sure. Now that I'm thinking about that. And you could have this sort of last hurrah thing where it's like, well, we know Momoa's not going to play Aquaman again. So I want to see the last time he does that, for people that really like that first movie. And I know that that's a, it goes without saying. These days it seems like everything you can call polarizing. But that movie, I run into a lot more people in fan circles that really dislike that movie or just don't like that that's the direction we went with Aquaman in general, which is kind of where I'm at. We're like, I enjoyed that as kind of a guilty pleasure, but it's not what I want from Aquaman.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely crazy.
But I think the general public was happy with it. Although not to a degree where I hear a lot of people talk about that movie. Like, it makes you wonder, because I haven't looked at the numbers, it makes me wonder just how much of that $1 billion was overseas. Because I know that China had a lot to do with the success of that movie, but I don't actually know how well it did domestically. I'll have to look that up.
I think it did well domestically, but what really made it stand out was the international numbers.
That's one of those movies that's a little bit baffling because it did well, but merchandise just sat on the shelves. Like, it must not have been kids. It must not have been parents taking their kids to that movie.
the merchandise for superhero movies just sucks these days. Like even the good movies, I can't imagine that stuff selling. I don't know why. Like why can't we?
But I don't think it's all just quality. I mean, there's movies with merchandise that I'm not impressed with that still seem to sell okay. But I'm telling you, like all the like masks and props and things from that movie, they just kind of sat there. Yeah. For everything else, they seem to move okay.
It's not very much. I wouldn't call it a kid's movie. I can't imagine kids being very entertained by that. It seems kind of boring.
But it's so bombastic, though.
It's definitely bombastic. I'll tell you that.
I don't know. When I was a kid, I would have loved that movie.
Well, when I was a kid, I loved '03 Hulk, and that's kind of a similar wacky but super serious tone. So I don't know. Maybe.
I don't agree with that. I mean, there's bits of it that are trying to be at least sort of haunting, or like a manufactured version of haunting, but particularly with the trench. But like a lot of that movie is really goofy and silly and one-linery and not like Hulk at all.
I'm not talking about scary. I'm just talking about serious. Like no one told Patrick Wilson to, or whatever his name is. What's that actor's name? Is it Patrick Wilson?
I think that. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Obviously,
he's just playing that so serious and it's so straight.
Yeah, but it also comes off really over the top because of everything that's surrounding it.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. But I don't know if I would get that as a kid. If I would get that it's silly, I would just be like, "Holy crap, he's really intense right now."
I don't know. Respectfully, I think if I'm a kid, I'm laughing at everything he's doing. But Daniver says it's got an adventure feel. Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I'm not sure if when I was a kid I would have seen that as like super serious.
I think I would have been bored if I saw it as a kid, but I don't know.
Interesting.
I was kind of bored when I saw it as an adult.
But so much imagery that a lot of movies seem to be kind of afraid to go as far with comic book stuff, being afraid to be too overly comic booky, that as a kid would have been a big deal to get to see just all the Atlanteans riding whales and that kind of stuff. And then just the fact that it's stacked with like 12 different chapters like a TV show.
Yeah, that's totally true. I do like how comic booky it is. Senior Sticks, another one from Senior Sticks, $2. Would you accept a JSA prequel film also with Waller?
I mean, I wouldn't want that. Accept is kind of a weird concept for me with a thing like this, where it's like I'll go because it's a superhero thing, and if it's good, it can win me over. But I don't want that, certainly. JSA is one of the several things that's been done now that really make me want things to be full on rebooted. I mean, I want the World War II JSA.
Mm.
Unless you do something hilarious where we find out that Waller is actually like 100 years old. She's kept herself young because she keeps using a Lazarus pit. That's why Waller's crazy. I'd love that. That seems like a thing Gunn would do with it too, where it's like Waller is like Nick Fury in the comics, where he's just been around forever, and you find out that Waller somehow like stole a Lazarus pit from the League of Assassins, and that's how she's been around for so long.
And that's how she's been in the most movies ever.
Exactly.
She's like the Watcher for the DC universe.
Yeah, which is hilarious because in the comics, Nick Fury became the Watcher.
All right, we've got one more super chat here so far from Utale.
Thanks, man.
James Cameron recently said testosterone is a toxin that should be purged from your system. Do you agree with him? And what will be the DC films in 2025?
I don't want to touch that with a 100-foot pole.
What a whiplash that last thrown in question was from that.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that second part, and let me with that first part without elaborating at all. Let me just say no and move on. So what was the second part of that?
Sorry, caught me off guard. What will be the DC films in 2025?
Yeah, well, we just did a big speculation cast about things we think Gunn might make, so go check that out. But I will say, yeah, the earliest stuff I think you could expect. Let me think a second.
Yeah, that's the first year we'll probably get movies from his plan, because that's
Yes.
3 years from now. So.
And I think we're going to find that out pretty soon. Like, we'll get a slate that will at least give us the first couple years, if not 4. If not everything through his tenure with his initial contract. Whatever that Waller project is, if he's still planning on doing that, will be one of the things in that year probably that I imagine will, because he said that he wants to make a movie that puts Amanda Waller on trial for all of her crimes during her tenure, and I imagine that will be part of the kind of transition into whatever the new DC movie universe will look like, and then it's possible, if I'm right and he does a Crisis, it's that early, or he might do 3 or 4 movies inside of this transition that are still in this kind of awkward DCEU that we've had so far, and then the next year wipes it all out, where we get kind of some finality for some of it, and then we get rid of some things. And I'm not sure what else he would do with that. Maybe one more Suicide Squad thing, like turn that into a trilogy. If he makes a thing, it's possible that the Waller thing ends up being another Suicide Squad movie, or it's possible that it doesn't have Suicide Squad in the title, but it has some of those characters, including her. It's possible that if Secret Six happens, like we've been speculating about, that's the movie that does that. I don't know, but the only thing I'll just straight up predict for 2025 is Viola Davis will play Amanda Waller that year. I think that will happen.
All right, well, we have exhausted the super chats. I'm going to go back to some pre-writtens.
And I'm exhausted already.
This is from, this is the first question I saw in the chat today from Jareth Gerhardt. He always gets in there early. He says, "Hey, Cap, which city do you like better, Orlando or Atlanta? I hate Orlando," he says.
Yeah, well, I want to say Atlanta hands down, although I've not really explored that city proper. I've been to DJ's place a couple of times, and he lives close to Atlanta, but we never really went into the city and did anything there. So all I can really talk about is surrounding towns and the airport. So if we're just comparing airports, I loathed the Orlando airport with like a burning passion. It's the worst airport I've been to, next to Paris. Now, Paris is like way up here for like really crappy airports. My wife and I got stuck in the Paris airport, and that was a friggin' nightmare. I was also stuck in the Atlanta airport in the Orlando airport for a little while. I thought it was going to be a lot longer, and I got lucky that I was able to get a connecting flight, ironically, or I guess coincidence. Irony is not coincidence, but coincidentally, I was going to Atlanta, actually, when I was stuck there over the summer. So I've been to both of these cities this year, and Atlanta has always been my favorite airport. I've had the most layovers there, and I really, really like that establishment, and it's kind of known as the friendliest and most well-maintained and best functioning airport in the country, and it deserves that that accolade. But I've had to drive in Orlando, and I didn't like that. But I haven't had to drive in Atlanta. So just with what little I know, but I assume when I finally do go and do anything in that city, I will still have this opinion.
I'm assuming you will not love driving in Atlanta because, like you said, you've never been in the city proper, and it is crazy. Traffic is insane. So I don't like driving in Atlanta. I haven't been to Atlanta in years, since I haven't had to go into the office anymore since 2020. So very thankful for that, because it's a crazy city. But I'm glad you enjoyed the periphery towns that I took you to while you were here.
Orlando wasn't hard to drive in. It was just, it's not a real well-maintained city as far as the roads go, and bad drivers and stuff, from my experience. And I just didn't love the way it was laid out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just don't like driving in big cities in general. Well,
and that's the thing, is Orlando doesn't feel like driving in a big city. That's what was weird about it, is like it's large and it's got a lot of theme parks and stuff, but the actual driving is a lot closer to, I don't want to say a small town, but like a small city. Like I grew up primarily in Lawrence, Kansas, where KU is, and it felt a lot more like driving there than a big city. Like downtown Kansas City, or any other big city I've driven in. I've never rented a car in the largest cities I've been to. So like when I went to the couple times I've been to California, I didn't have to drive there, and thank God, because riding in cars there, I was like, I would have a heart attack and die if I had to drive in the city. So, so if Atlanta's like that, then I guess I'm glad I haven't had to drive there. But
I think it's like third. I think it's like L.A., New York, and then Atlanta.
Really? Yikes.
Maybe not. Maybe Dallas. I'm not exactly sure. Anyway, cinematographic.
I'll say this. I rode with Dan in Boston, and was glad I didn't have to drive there. That was hectic.
Yeah. Cinematographic, Cap and DJ, have either of you had a chance to play Gotham Knights, and do you agree or disagree with the assertion that it should have been set in the Arkhamverse? I feel like there was... And then he puts a ... I don't know where he was going with that question.
Yeah, it continued. I did read this earlier. There's another comment where he continued it right underneath there.
I will find that while you... oh, yeah, I feel like there's nothing else left to say with the Arkhamverse.
Right. So I've talked about this before. I did not play that game. I don't have a burning desire to, and I'm assuming you haven't either, DJ.
If not. Is that only on PS5, or is there a PS4 version?
There's a PS4 version.
Okay. I've not.
I don't have a burning desire to, just especially after looking at reviews and talking to folks that played it. It sounds way too grindy for my taste. The kind of RPG elements that they've shoved into that don't appeal to me. Doing fights with like the numbers over people's heads, I don't really love that. And it looks like the combat compared to Arkham is real stripped down and not as much fun. Again, just from what people have told me, I haven't played it. What little I saw of dialogue exchanges, the writing didn't impress me. So like as a story-based game, I'm not really jazzed about looking at that. And the reason, and I will say, I did agree, just having not played it, because people have said when you play it, it makes enough sense that it wasn't set in the Arkhamverse. They make a decent case for it. But I still say, if it's going to look as much like an Arkham game as it does, and is hinging so much on the popularity of those games, yeah, it ought to be set in that universe. Like, mix up the aesthetic of it and change up the gameplay even more than you did if it's not going to be set in the Arkhamverse. And don't do a thing that right away, because I think this probably hurt the sales with it a little bit before people played it. Like, go with a less counterintuitive story premise. So you're going to go, we're not set in the Arkham universe. You finally get to play as all these other members of the Bat family, but it's set in the future and after Batman's died. Well, that sounds like an Arkham premise. Like, it sounds like you're in the Arkham universe and you go to the future and Batman has at least ostensibly died. Here's an idea. If it's going to be in a completely different universe, then really mix up the aesthetic and the world and do something like, and I don't mean it should look like this, but take a page out of the Telltale book and start over and make yet another iteration of the Batman universe that feels like a totally other vision. So that's why I still say it should have been, if we're going to go with that premise, it should have been Arkhamverse.
I have to ask you this one real quick, because just before the show, I got a Facebook message from a girl that I went to high school with. And
Did she have a question for the Captain Logan show?
She said that her husband, she was in the other room, and her husband just said, "Hey, don't you know DJ?" He's been following you, Captain Logan, for years, for like 10 years.
Oh, crazy!
And he just saw our video where you came to my house.
Oh.
And he was like, hey, don't you know this guy? So he's been a big fan of you. And he also...
Well, that's amazing. Thank you for watching.
Yeah, I've never met him. His name's Sean, but he's married to my friend from high school, Jenny. And she said
it's a small world, man.
I know, it's crazy. He's also a big movie collector, and he just put in the chat, Sean Doyle, do you feel like you will continue your new Criterion Collection, Captain?
Yes, absolutely. My plan is when there's a movie, well, a couple of things. I will keep checking the big sales. I don't plan on spending full price on any of those, but when they do the big November sales, or if they have other ones, I'll go check them out and see if there's anything like I did last time when I made the video with DJ on his channel. Go check that out if you've not seen it. I bought a bunch of Criterion stuff. I never bought anything from that collection. And what I'll probably do now is I'll look at those sales, and when there's movies that I feel like really need to be in my family's movie collection, I'll try to get them that way, because they're really nice newly restored transfers, and the the boxes are pretty, and they've got booklets with a lot of information and stuff. And then when especially new stuff comes out that I'm thinking about getting anyway, I'll check the list and see if Criterion's put it out. But I'll try to go to them as often as I can, and also Arrow, when it comes to like cult classic stuff. Like I want to look at some of these kind of smaller, I guess, I don't know, art house companies that put out
boutique,
movies.
Boutique companies, yeah.
Because honestly, this is just kind of a new concept to me in the last few years, DJ. Like, I would buy special releases for superhero movies and things and sci-fi stuff when, like, Target had cool releases, or I found good steelbooks and stuff. But I didn't realize that there were companies that made their entire mission statement like doing original nice new releases, and especially like what Arrow did with, because I just watched my new copy of Flatliners, and they went back and did a brand new not cut of that, but like restoration of that from the original print, and got the original art director or editor one, I can't remember, to sign off on it. And I want to get more stuff like that. That looked absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, you said you want the Arrow RoboCop that just came out this year.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that's a new transfer.
Yeah, that was mastered in 4K, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. I had a good time doing that video with you. Thanks for the plug. My channel is the Welder, no space. I just published a video with Connor today, going over all the stuff he got in the sale. He got a lot, but yeah, it was a lot of fun doing that with you.
That was a long video, so I assumed he bought a ton. But
yeah, he got a bunch. But that was everything he got the whole month, not just in one haul.
I was gonna say he orders a lot too.
Yeah. All right, let's go to. We just had some super chats come in while we were talking. So Mutale. Who is more jaded with pop culture, Dan or Eric?
I don't know. I don't love having to answer that. I mean, it was a super chat, so I guess I'll make the attempt. Look, I totally understand where those guys are coming from with stuff. I feel a lot of what they feel about like current quality of things and stuff. I don't know. I hesitate because I don't like answering for people. And I know this is kind of, it is like my opinion about the jadedness of those two guys, but like I'm not super comfortable with that question. Yeah. I haven't talked to Eric about pop culture stuff in quite a while, so I don't know how he's feeling about stuff. And not for any particular reason or anything. He and I have just both been busy with our own stuff, and we messaged each other the last couple of times major actors died, but like that's the last I've really talked to Eric in the last 4 months or so. So at the moment, just based on recent conversations, I guess I'll say Dan, but I don't know if that's true. Anyway, moving right along.
Checkers the Inventor, $5. wait, no more Black
I thought
Adam?
you unsubscribed.
Yeah, what are you doing here? He said, wait, no more Black Adam? I legit just got a giant Black Adam 2 back tattoo.
Oh, stop it. No, you didn't.
It's basically the Ghostbusters 2 logo, but with The Rock.
And then he filmed in Origin for that logo where somebody was like tattooing his back and came up with the circle with the slash in it. That's a Ghostbusters 2016 reference.
One of Cap's favorite films.
Don't believe you, Checkers.
And then we got one from Utali. If you could pitch a film to DC Studios.
If you could pinch a film director, which one would you pinch?
No, that is a good question. Why is that not what we're getting right now? Come on, guys, step up the questions.
I don't know. Who were we talking about earlier that said that testosterone was like a toxic thing that shouldn't exist?
Cap wants to pinch James Cameron.
Was that James Cameron? Maybe I'd pinch James Cameron. I'm sorry, what was the actual...
Wake up, James Cameron.
Sorry, what was the actual question?
If you could pitch a film to DC Studios with full creative freedom, what would you pitch, and what will be the better MCU film, Quantumania or The Marvels?
Wow. That let me do these in reverse order. That second question is really interesting. We've got a trailer from Quantumania, and we don't know very much at all about the Marvels, so it's not an easy thing to respond to. We've got too much information about one over the other. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, actually, it will be the Marvels. But I don't know that for sure. Of course.
Yeah, I'm more interested in that one. Just because I've been not even disappointed with two Ant-Man films, just nothing to two Ant-Man films. I don't know. I can't feel anything about that third one.
I don't immediately love what I'm seeing with that, and I'm kind of expecting I'm not going to be super impressed with Kang, to be brutally honest with you. And I think they're trying really hard to finally make a more epic, grand event thing with that. And I don't know that that's a director and a writer that are up to that task. And I think I'm, at the moment, weirdly more interested in the Marvels just because it's a big question mark. Like, that could be anything right now. So I guess, I know the question wasn't which of these seems more interesting to you, but it's hard for me not to take it in that direction. I don't know which will be the better movie. I don't have enough information, I guess, with the other one. But the Marvels is, because, like, I didn't like Carol Danvers too much in her own movie, or I should say she's kind of a blank slate at the moment. She didn't have enough of a character arc. I can't totally peg her down. Maybe that second movie will define her better and make me like her more, but at least I already like Monica Rambeau.
And I like the actress who plays Miss Marvel a bunch. I agree that Carol Danvers is pretty super generic in that movie, but I could see something similar happening that happened with the second Black Widow in the Black Widow movie, where she was just kind of meh for me in that movie. But then when she played around with young Hawkeye in the Hawkeye show, I liked her a lot more. I could see Carol Danvers, when she starts interacting with Miss Marvel, coming alive and having a lot more fun. And
now, I will say, if the girl from Hawkeye was for some crazy reason in the Marvels, I would immediately be a lot more excited about that movie. But there's no reason for her to be there. Although there was also no reason for Riri Williams to be in Black Panther 2. And there she was. So, whatever. But
yeah, so Miss Marvel's could be fun. I'm looking forward to it, at least for the casting. I have no idea what that movie's going to be, though. What's next? Oh, do you want to answer the first part of that, which was if you could pitch a film to DC Studios with full creative freedom, what would you pitch?
Yeah. Well, it's hard not to make, I don't know, that it's hard in my brain, sorry for that question, not to be synonymous with just what do you want Gunn to make. Like, the first thing that comes to mind is the first thing I talked about in the speculation cast we did, which is Resurrection Man. But I don't know that I would want to make Resurrection Man. Like, what would I... Like, what movie would I want to make? It's hard not to just go to stuff that I talk about all the time. Like something with... It would be probably a small, low-key movie that would never get made, that wouldn't be big enough because these things cost $300 million.
Well, he would work in a mortuary, first of all.
No, I would... okay, so here's the. So you want me to pitch a movie, not just tell you a character? Okay. The first thing that comes to mind is a real character-focused movie that is, hear me out, primarily a one-room drama that is Oracle in the clock tower when No Man's Land happens, and it covers the entirety or most of the days that No Man's Land happens, and so every scene is like day 25, day 78, like the way Rucka frames it in his novelization of No Man's Land. So you just do the Oracle parts, and she is like monitoring situations, and all the money for big action scenes and stuff goes to just things you are seeing on her monitor, and how she is personally affecting the situation, but also trying not to go stir crazy and lose her mind being in a room by herself, and having to like live isolated away from everybody else in a wheelchair, not being able to help out in any way but from a desk. I think there is a lot of potential for a cool character study in a thing like that. So yeah, I don't know, that suddenly came to me. That's what I'd pitch. Nobody would make that.
That's awesome, though. No, you could do that potentially pretty low budget, especially if you had like some DC films that you could pull the footage from for the screens, like they did in Iron Man 2, where the ending of Hulk is playing on a TV in Tony Stark's lab.
You could make it kind of
Between the Raindrops movie. That'd be pretty cool.
You could make it like a singular character. Not that there wouldn't be other characters in it, and she wouldn't have to always be by herself either. Because in No Man's Land, you've got Cassandra Cain coming and going some, like in and out of the clock tower, and she is giving her information and missions, sometimes in person, sometimes remotely, that kind of thing. She'd be like in Rucka's novel. She'd be doing a like verbal journal to her father, and all of that. But it could be a really cool character study and kind of a psychological thriller.
Mm-hmm. Checkers the Inventor back again, even though he's supposed to be unsubscribed. $2.
Thanks, Checkers. He's just lying. His whole MO tonight is just lying about everything. He didn't unsubscribe, and you're going to have to send me the picture of the tattoo, because I don't believe you.
I don't believe him either. But continuing on that thought, he says, just release Aquaman 2 as Lobo, the movie. Save money.
You just call it Lobo, and you make a poster that's got Mamoa made up as Lobo, but then you go see it and it's Aquaman.
It's like a TV edit where every time someone says Aquaman, it bleeps it out and says Lobo.
That sounds amazing.
I'd watch it.
I would too.
All right. Next one is from Josh Gullisano, $5.
Hi, Josh.
About our conversation earlier. Are there any superhero movies that should get Criterion releases? Personally, I think Donner's Superman should get a Criterion.
Yeah, this is a debate, if I can call it that came up a little bit in DJ, the comment section in your video that you and I made. Because in that I bring up, or I ask if there has been anything superhero that was made for Criterion. And I said it wrong in the moment we were in the car in that parking lot. What I really meant was just this stuff based on a comic book that would go in my comic book superhero collection. And then, pardon me, we went inside and I found one, and it was Ghost World. And so we discovered that there was at least a couple of things based on comics, if not anything that technically counts as a traditional superhero movie. And then somebody in the comment section said, well, here's why Criterion doesn't do, big major like blockbuster or things that are that high profile, because they just can't get the rights to them, even though now they've done Wall-E, and so there's precedent for maybe it's possible some of those bigger movies would happen. do you not feel like, and I don't want to sound prudish about this, I only own like 9 of these now. It's not like I'm a big Criterion collector, and I don't want to be like I said, prudish about it,
Hmm.
but there's a part of me that doesn't even love the Wall-E thing for them. Like, I don't want them to get bogged down with the big stuff everybody knows, because I'm a little bit afraid that it's gonna eclipse the smaller, less well-known stuff, because I think one of the things that's really great about Criterion is they're getting a lot of people to find out about movies that they wouldn't otherwise ever consider buying, and they're about like the, as at least as they look at it, the best of the best, cream of the crop films, over time, and not just art house stuff you've never heard of. Certainly, there's big movies, or at least like, movie canon type things everybody's heard of. I bought Silence of the Lambs. I bought My Dinner with Andre. Like, most of the stuff I bought are things we've all heard of, right?
Yeah.
But I'm a little bit worried that it kind of dilutes the mission statement for them a little bit. I don't know that I want to see like the big, I don't know that I want like the Criterion version of The Dark Knight or of Avengers, or
Yeah, I definitely don't
I
want
don't
any
know
of
that we
that.
need that. And especially because there's enough really good looking releases of those movies already. And I think that's true of the Pixar films too. Like, they already get cool releases. Why does Criterion need to make those?
Yeah, I agree with you. I definitely don't want any of those. I don't want the big budget like Disney or DC stuff in there. I'm kind of, I think I'm okay with it with Wall-E, because there's an argument that could be made that that's a lot of people's favorite Pixar film, and it's more of an important film, I guess. It's science fiction and it's speculative. I think there's an argument you can make for that. And it's kind of exciting that they at least have that bridge now, so that some older Disney stuff. I know Connor's super excited about the Straight Story having a chance at getting a Criterion now, because
Yeah.
there's a connection with Disney. So there could be some good things that come out of it. I don't want them to start doing like a bunch of Pixar movies. I think one is good. And having bought that now, it is amazing, and it's a really, really good release. And they went above and beyond with the packaging and put a bunch of new special features and a bunch of new commentary and stuff. So
Well, that's great if it doesn't set the wrong precedent. But my worry is you're going to look back at this in 5 years and be like, okay, now they've done 8 of them.
no, I definitely don't want that to come in, because they only do like 5 or 6 a month, and I don't want one every month to be a Disney film. So hopefully
Yeah.
I don't know what that partnership is going to be like. That's crazy. It was huge news when it came out, and we still don't know much about it. So hopefully, hopefully that's a positive thing. But yeah, a lot of people in the comment section in that video recommended a lot of things. Apparently, Crumb is a documentary that's comic book related. A couple people
Yeah,
mentioned that.
I saw that comment, which I had heard of but don't know anything about at all.
And then Blue is the Warmest Color is a movie based on a graphic novel. And then a couple people mentioned Punch Drunk Love. Apparently, there's a theory that it's a Superman story, which is really
Which I
interesting.
had heard before, but I've never seen that movie, so I don't know where that comes from.
It's an Adam Sandler movie, or
But
he's the
I
star
would,
of it. But
yeah. So I'll put that off some more. But
it's
but
supposed to be his best movie.
but I will say, to actually answer the question, I would want to try to keep it more in the vein of the kinds of stuff they tend to release. And again, like they do release big stuff that we've all heard of, like the 54 Godzilla is in there. I bought that.
Hmm.
But like, I think as far as the huge movies that have gotten good releases before, that we all know and love, the one exception I might make is the one that you said is Donner Superman. I can see a case being made for that. That is a major, film canon sort of epic movie. Like, you can almost forget that in the category of superhero movie, in that it's the first major one that's got a budget, and it's got a wonderful epic 3-act structure. I can see the case being made for that. But let me throw a couple of things out at you that I would actually really like to see them put out. Obviously, I don't need the sequels, but I think a Criterion for Unbreakable is worth doing.
Yeah.
And I could also see it for some smaller independent stuff like Defendor.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Superman definitely, just for the importance of it, like it was the first that really got everything going. I can maybe even see an argument for Raimi's Spider-Man, even though I don't love that film, but because it kind of started the big boom in the 2000s.
Yeah.
I think there's maybe a chance that we get a Hellboy 2 at some point, because they've already worked with Del Toro. 3 of his films are in the collection: Pan's Labyrinth, Devil's Backbone, and Kronos. So they like that director, and that could maybe eventually get in there. I think that's a really good movie. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know much else that I would think. I have to noodle it.
Yeah. All right, let's move on.
Ryder, does Marvel take us for granted?
In what way? Just
like that we'll see everything they put out, I guess.
I think that so. This is going to be kind of a layered response. I think that they have really gotten the reputation for that, particularly during Phase 4, and it sounds like Feige is aware of it, and I mean, how could you not be? And is going to try to do everything he can to curb that moving forward with Phase 5. So it's complicated because I don't know that Feige has been that way exactly. I think it's just a matter of what the strategy is. So it has felt like their attitude is, we can do no wrong. People will see anything we put out. And they've gone with that theory. And you can see how they get there when they put out things, years ago, like Guardians of the Galaxy, with a property that the mainstream has never heard of, and then it goes from C-list to A-list superhero stuff overnight and is one of their biggest successes. And they've had a few projects like that you might not expect to do gangbusters and have been really popular. And when that movie was so successful, Saturday Night Live put out a spoof trailer of a bunch of just really stupid sounding movies, because Marvel can put out anything they want to and people will go see it. So they had like a woman pushing a shopping cart and it was like Pam, and then the sequel was Pam the Winter Soldier, and it was great. But so like for a while their reputation was they can do no wrong, and now their reputation is they think they can do no wrong. And there's a big difference, right? So it seems like the next phase of Marvel, not just Phase 5, but I mean like the next chapter of their business strategy is going to be, okay, let's sober up a little bit and not get too big for our britches, and realize that regardless of the fact that we're still successful and still putting out movies that are making money, if we're not careful, we could tank this whole thing because we're just throwing everything at the wall, and we need to start being a little bit more careful about what we're tossing at the wall. So at the very least, throw fewer eggs. And so Feige has been talking like Phase 5 might actually see some things get canceled that have been pitched or that have been announced already. And that's not going to include some things that I don't think they should have bothered with, like Agatha, because it's already filming. But they're not going to put out everything that they've said they are, because this last phase has not been as successful as they were hoping it would. And I think a lot of it has probably more to do with that reputation they've garnered, even than it does with specifically how much money they've been making with individual projects. Although I think a big wake-up call for them, unfortunately for me and you, DJ, is Eternals. Where they're like, oh, we can't just, make anything that people haven't heard of, and it's gonna do, big guns. So, yeah, I think if they either have been taking us for granted, or their strategy has been, just ignore everybody and throw out stuff and hope it works out, and that hasn't happened. So there's what's really been happening, how they really feel about it, and then there's the perception of it, I guess, is what I'm saying.
If I can say anything for James Gunn being made CEO, it's made me realize how many of your commonly used expressions have the word gun in them. Because I notice it every time now. Thanks, James Gunn.
I grew up in America, and we have a lot of metaphors and figures of speech and phrases
We do.
that have to do with guns and just violence in general. It's just the way we talk here, regardless of how you feel about, gun violence and gun laws and that kind of thing. It's just how we talk here.
Exactly. Senior Sticks.
Especially where I grew up in the South.
Senior Sticks, $2.
But, a lot of phrases like bite the bullet.
Yeah, under the gun.
Under the gun. There's a bunch of them that are not immediately coming to me now.
Yeah, well,
you
just
said
that. You just said big guns.
That's what made me. That's
what made me think of
Jump the gun.
All right, Senior Sticks, $2. I'd pitch. This is in response to him asking you to pitch a movie. He says, I'd pitch a Jack Bauer type The Atom movie to Gunn.
Yeah, and I don't know enough about that character, so I'm not sure why you're suggesting it should be like Jack Bauer. But a movie like that, with whatever character you want to do with it, would be cool. Just because, we've done a lot of spy fiction type movies, but in espionage things, but something that's more specifically just like an agent like Jack Bauer that's running around, and DJ is under the gun, and there's like a ticking time bomb, and he's got to decide whether he's going to torture people for information, and if the ends justifies the means for that kind of thing. I'd be fine with a superhero movie that somehow did that, depending on what character we did it with. I'd also be fine with a real-time superhero movie. I think that could be pretty cool.
That'd be crazy. Yeah, you'd have to bring that gimmick, right? Like, that's the whole point. Otherwise, it's just a Jack Reacher or a Jack Ryan or a million other airport dad books made into a movie.
Yeah. I want a movie called Airport Dad.
It's just a one-room drama like your Oracle movie where he's just sitting in the bookstore at the airport the whole time.
Well, I think we can come up with a more exciting, juicy premise, but...
Hey, the Atlanta airport is huge. There's a lot of stuff that could go on in that airport.
Dude, I would love to shoot a short film in the Atlanta airport.
Yeah, just like they shot that film at Disney World without telling them. It'll go great.
Yeah, I don't know if you can get away with that as easily in an airport.
No, there's literally security guards everywhere.
I think that's harder. Well, there's a lot of security guards at Disneyland, but everybody is walking around with cameras shooting things and filming when they're on rides. Not as often as at the airport. There's some of that. It would be harder to blend in. After a while, you'd be the guy that's been at the airport for 5 hours filming. It'd be like, at some point, does he get on an airplane, or is he just here filming? Well, that's the other thing, too, is when you go to a theme park, people expect you to be there not just for hours, but days. Not so in an airport.
No, you've done something wrong, as Captain Logan illustrated earlier in Orlando or France. He wasn't supposed to be there that long.
Yeah, well, okay, so for the record, I didn't do anything wrong in France.
Sorry, he just has bad luck with airports.
Yeah, I did miss my flight, and it was my fault. Thanks for bringing that up. When I was in Florida, in France, it was the airport's fault. The plane landed. I can't remember if the plane landed late. This was when I went to Germany like 5 years ago. I can't remember if the plane was late or what exactly happened, but either the plane was late or the next one was early. But anyway, we just were held in customs for so long, it was physically impossible to get to our plane before it took off.
Oh, wow.
It was awful. Sarah and I were like, we looked like we were in like a bad Christmas movie, just running across the airport.
Was
Could not get there in time.
Was Run Run Rudolph playing?
In my head, yeah. And then shortly thereafter, Sugar Plum Fairies were dancing around it. Anyway, what else have you got?
No more super chats.
Okay.
I'll do one more here, or however many regular chats you
sure,
like.
Yeah, let's do a couple pre-writtens, and we'll see if anybody else throws super chats in, and we can go ahead and call it a night a little bit earlier if there's not as much stuff to cover. We've only been at this an hour and a half, but we've covered enough stuff that it feels like it's already been a couple of hours.
Yeah, it's been a good show.
No, Tom, no After Dark tonight. I've got a writers meeting tomorrow that I've got to prepare for, but we're going to try to bring that back next week for Patreon. Oh, quick plug real quick, though. We are doing a special meeting for the Superhero Rewind selection board on Patreon on Saturday. So if you're interested in joining us for that, you can join that group at the $10 tier on Patreon. One of the perks that you get there is you get to hang out with me on average once a month, and sometimes we'll do pitch meetings for ideas for Rewind, and we'll just talk about superhero movies, things like that. And sometimes we do watch parties, and this week we're going to be watching Men in Black. We're going to be doing that at 10 p.m. Central Time, Saturday night, Men in Black. So join that tier if you are so inclined, and then just hit me up, and I will give you on Patreon, and I will give you the link to the Discord, and you can join us there. We're gonna have a good time, and Austin is gonna try to make that show, and Brandon will be there as well.
Sweet. All right, Daniverse. Good example of a movie / story overdoing it and adding elements that weren't necessary to a property. I always go back to Zombies Halloween.
I've never seen that. I don't even know what that is, actually.
Rob Zombie's Halloween movie.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Sorry. I was just imagining some movie called Zombies Halloween. Yes, that is a good example of that. So it sounds like he's just asking for examples of what, like convoluted things?
Yeah, I guess so. Movies or stories that are overdoing and adding too many elements that weren't necessary to a property. But he says to a property, so I'm guessing
property,
like
which
brand,
suggests either remakes
like
or adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like this movie more than I did before I did the Rewind, but I still will throw Lone Ranger on that list.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good example of that.
I will say the 2014 Ninja Turtle franchise.
Sure.
We don't need them to be giant monsters that crack the cement when they walk. Like, and all the other stuff, crazy stuff they had. I didn't even watch the second one. But the first one really rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah, I guess Power Rangers 2017 would almost be an example of the opposite of this, right? Where, like, part of the problem with that was they just didn't name any lore or aliens or anything, so it felt really super generic. But then on the characterization side, which was what that movie did better, it did feel, if not too much, just kind of arbitrary. So I guess in some ways I would kind of count that movie where it's like, you know, did every character need like a real angsty backstory?
Matthew Bass says The Predator 2018.
Yeah, that's a real kitchen sink kind of movie. The Spirit is an example of that, although I like that movie more than a lot of people just because I think it's really funny. But
you might like that movie more than anyone.
No, my wife likes that movie more than anyone.
That's true.
Believe you me. X3?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Just in...
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to think of more like crazy things, but no, X3 was just like a bad decision to put both of those in one movie.
Yeah, just putting both of those in one movie. I mean, we can throw Aquaman under the bus again, I guess.
Yeah, but that was kind of what I liked about it.
Yeah, so I know ridiculous. That's where I'm at with it too. But like
if it didn't do that, it would have just been generic and lame. But the fact that
it is a lot of what's flawed about that movie too.
Yeah. What a crazy movie. All right, let me go to another one here. Alex Barron.
Yeah.
Which opinions, pop culture or otherwise, do you hold now that your younger self would most disagree with?
Oh man, that's such a broad question.
It's such a good question that I don't think we're gonna have good answers for on the spot.
Yeah, you're blindsiding me with it. This is one of those, like, I don't know if this is, you know, kind of the point of much of this show is Q&A in the moment, but some questions when you get hit having to go off the cuff like that is a lot harder to come up with great answers. Okay, so man, it's so broad, DJ.
I'm gonna stick to the pop culture because I can't just like any opinion I had is gonna be way too broad.
Oh, of course, yeah. No, I'm only thinking pop, but even still with that, it's kind of wide and open ended.
Oh, an easy one because I just referenced it earlier.
Yeah.
I can mention is I don't like the Raimi Spider-Man films anymore, but I loved those as a kid. And if I found out, if my younger self heard myself talk about those movies now, he'd be like, "What are you talking about? You idiot! Those movies are great." So that's something I really disagree with. I can't think of any other big movies that I just like changed on, like pop culture in general. That's so broad.
My wife has turned me at least story-wise some against Star Trek First Contact, which used to be like probably my second favorite Star Trek movie. And in some ways it still is just for entertainment value, but like I've got a lot of issues with that I didn't at one time. I've got different kind of scores for some superhero movies now that I didn't 10 or 12 years ago when I did the original rewinds. So like Batman 89, I would drop a whole point now. That's like a solid 2.5, even though I love that movie.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was younger, I would have said that's like the best superhero movie ever made, which it's just not. But yeah, I still love it for what it is.
And it's weird. It's like how young are we going with ourselves here? Because like when I was a kid, I liked Secret of the Ooze way more.
When I was
than
a
the
kid,
first
I
Ninja
was
Turtles.
dumb. I had all kinds of stupid opinions back then.
Yeah, I liked Secret of the Ooze better because I was a kid and it was made for kids, and the first one's like a serious dark movie. But now, obviously, I know the first one's much better. But I watched the second VHS tape I had way more than the first one when I was a kid, like real young kid. But I don't know how young our younger selves were talking about in this question.
With comics, I used to like Hush a lot more than I do now. There's a lot of stuff that you go back to later and you realize either it doesn't hold up or you're looking at it in a different light. The same thing with The Long Halloween. I've turned on that pretty hard. Sad to say. And then this is almost going to a different topic, I guess, but sometimes you'll go back to movies, and we've talked about this a lot, of course, but sometimes you'll go back to movies and really anything, comics, what have you, as an adult that you haven't seen in a real long time, and you realize that they're not, what you thought they were. Like, I just went back to and showed my family The Never-Ending Story, which now I never want to see that again. That movie is kind of awful, it turns out. I'm sorry to say. And like I still have some nostalgia for it, and there's still some things I admire about that movie, but it doesn't make any sense, and it just feels like there's a lot of scenes that are missing.
Well, Germany just put out
an incomplete film.
Germany just put out a 4K transfer, and it has all of the scenes put back in that we lost in the American cut.
Oh, so there were scenes missing.
There's an international cut that's been around for a while, and they just restored it for that 4K version. It does not have the song in it, so if you love that Never-Ending Story song, sorry, it does not have that, but it is apparently a better cut, and the director is German. It's not a German film, but I think the director is German. Right. I think that's why they got a longer version for the international cut. But I'd like to get that 4K release just to see what that cut's like.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
I really want to see that. And I'd love to see what score or music they replaced the cheesy song with.
Yeah.
Because that could help it in a lot of ways. I mean, that song, for what it is, back in the day is great, but it would it could help the flavor of that movie and make it easier to take seriously.
Yeah, I'd like to watch that movie. I didn't grow up with that movie. It was before my time, and I never saw it growing up. And then I read the book, and when I found out that the movie's only like half the book, like the second half of the book is about him going into the book, and like which they do in like the later crappy
sequel.
DVD sequels. Yeah, but I was like, wow, they didn't get much done in this movie at all. But I'd like to watch that version and just kind of separate it from the book and just see if I can enjoy it.
Well, the biggest mistake they make, I think, in the outset with that is not really and maybe there's scenes about this that are missing. but they don't really establish Fantasia at all before they start destroying it. Like you just go and see the big rock guy on his giant tricycle, and then he goes and sees like a troll guy and the guy with the bat. Who he says, there's this great bit where he says, "Nobody cares about me and my stupid bat." And my wife goes, "That is true," which is really funny. But they just establish him, and he goes, "Oh, there's this big thing called the Nothing. It's destroying everything. I lost my whole area I lived in," and then somebody else, "Oh yeah, our land is destroyed too." And it's like, "Oh, most of Fantasia is destroyed already, and we just got here." Like, that's a mistake.
Yeah, it's kind of like the first Narnia movie where it's like you don't get to see Narnia. The first time you see Narnia, it's just like endless winter. But the difference is they fix that like halfway through the movie, and then you get to see Narnia for the second half of the movie. So maybe if they had done the second half of the Neverending Story book, you would have got more. But we did get one more super chat while we were rambling. Those, by the way, those would be good commentary movies. We should do those at some point. Even the sequels, like the third one with Jack Black as the bully.
That is a very difficult movie to sit through. I'm going to go as far as to say I watched it one time, and especially production value-wise, it's Ninja Turtles 3 bad. It might be rougher than Ninja Turtles 3, if such a thing is possible.
Wow. Yeah, I had a movie that had a trailer for that third one on it. So I saw him like in that one silly scene. I don't know anything about the movie, though, except for what was in that trailer.
Real quick before we move on, I just want to say that was a great question, and I just wish I had more time to really noodle it, because I feel like this is a phenomenon that it creeps up on me fairly often, where I'll realize just how much I've changed.
Yeah.
As an adult, or even as, a closer to middle-aged man than when I say started the channel, where I'm like, wow, if I think about this a lot, I just can't come up with good examples right now, where like, if only my 10-year-old or younger self, like when I was 28, could come forward and see what 38-year-old me is up to or thinks about things. Well, and now I'm thinking of examples of, like you said, like I'm not going to talk about this, but like geeky stuff where like my worldview has changed to some degree, like the way I look at stuff and
yeah, I think we all do that.
Feel about things is different. And yeah, I know I'm not special or alone in this or whatever, but it is interesting to consider, like, if you could time travel and go back and meet yourself, and also in what subjects you'd think you have it more right, and you wish that back then you had been a little more grown up, a little bit smarter about things, a little more savvy, notice stuff better, and then what things you actually wish you could be more like you were when you were younger, and you could have maybe more idealism, or you feel like you're a little bit more cynical about things now. I have both of those things, absolutely.
Same. I high school DJ would not be friends with current DJ. I can say that definitively.
I thought you were going to say high school DJ wouldn't be friends with me.
Who knows? No, I was watching you. No, I didn't start watching you till my first year of college, 2010. Okay. But there's a whole video there. That could be a list video. 10 biggest disagreements I have with my younger self.
That's cool. Yeah, I'd have to really think about that.
All right, shall we tackle this last super chat? And
absolutely, let's do that.
Let these people go on with their evening. Senior Sticks, $2. What if Zordon recruited the TMNT and Venus?
Well, you'd have to have that so that you had a 5-person team.
Yeah, he thought it through. Good thinking, Senior Sticks.
Yeah. Well, right away, I'll just...
Didn't Hasbro release that, like the Turtle Rangers, a few years ago?
Well, yeah, because they did a crossover in the comics. That's what that's based on. That's where you get the stupid Shredder Green Ranger morph, which I hate with a burning passion. It looks so stupid. I don't understand. I know I've talked about this. I don't understand a morph where you're missing sleeves. Like, just bare-armed Power Rangers bothers me. I can't have it. Anyway. No, I'm going to answer this in a real-world production practical way first and say if the Power Rangers are the Ninja Turtles and Venus from that show, that's immediately a better show. Because even though we're talking about Power Rangers, and that's not, of course, the best writing in the world, even from the beginning of Mighty Morphin, it's better written and the choreography is way, way better, and the production value is way higher than Next Mutation. So, like, right away, that's a better show than Next Mutation. If you go watch the
You don't like the slide whistles and the boing when they punch somebody?
Well, and I mean, like, that's all silly, but they don't have a good choreography director on, or they don't have good stunt people. Like, you can tell it's not, and cinematography too. Like, the fights aren't shot well, but it also just feels like you've got people in suits that have never done this before. It is night and day when you go look at the stunt choreography that's going on in Power Rangers at the very same time. Go look at any episode of Space, and yeah, some of it is Sentai footage, but even the stuff we're shooting, what little we're shooting of actual fights, is so much better looking than what's in Next Mutation. So, because I've done this, go watch the first few episodes of Next Mutation, and then watch the crossover with that show in Space, and the quality shoots up to the nines. It's shocking. Like, it makes Power Rangers in Space feel like a real TV show. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know why that show is so terrible.
But I think
I'm talking about Next Mutation.
Yeah. But as far as, like, in continuity, I think it would be a lot harder for Ninja Turtles to keep Zordon's rules, because now they have to, like, stay in hiding all the time so that people don't find out that there are Ninja Turtles, and they also have to keep their Power Ranger identities a secret.
Well, people would know they're turtles because you look like a giant turtle in a Power Ranger suit. Like, that's...
Well, that could just be... No,
like.
not necessarily, though. It could just be the aesthetic of... the Power Ranger suits people could just think are Ninja Turtle themed. It's not like people look at the Mighty Morphin suits and go, there are dinosaurs in those costumes.
Well, they would be turtle-shaped Rangers, but then they would have dinosaurs. But they do have Tor, who kind of ties everything together. Tor the Turtle Zord.
That's true. This is such a silly topic.
Yeah, I don't know what happens to Splinter. Like, does Zordon kidnap them from Splinter and he doesn't get to see his kids, or does...
Maybe they're working together. I think Splinter and Zordon, I overthink these things. Splinter and Zordon, I don't think would get along. They'd have really different worldviews. I mean, Splinter, especially if you're talking something closer to Mirage Turtles, like, Splinter would be like, go get revenge on this guy that did my family wrong, and Zordon would be like, don't never escalate a fight.
Yeah, they would be like they'd be John Locke and Jack.
That's exactly right.
In the show. This sounds like a great show. We should get this greenlit.
Yeah, I'd watch that. If they do another crossover in the comics, they need to have a huge ideological conflict between Splinter and Zordon. I would love that.
Yeah, Teenage Morphin Turtle Rangers.
And both of those mentors in their respective comic series, with Boom and IDW, are somewhat ethically ambiguous. You know, like, they both make major mistakes and are a little bit too extreme in their philosophies. It would be really interesting to pit them up against each other.
And the analogs are there. I mean, Mikey could be Zach, Billy is Donnie, Leo's Jason, Venus is Kimberly, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know who Raph is on the original 5. There's not really like a loose canon in that original 5.
No, it's not like Raph is Trini. Like, it breaks down at some point.
Yeah, but it was close. It would work, I think. Anyway.
What would be really funny is if you did this is the last thing I'll say about this, and then we'll close up. Wouldn't it be really funny if you did the stupid Turbo thing, where you get rid of Zordon, and then for no reason at all, Splinter is in the tube? Like Demetria.
Yeah, where it's just, it's not a tube that's like sustaining his life anymore. It's just like a projector screen, and she's in a different place projecting to it.
Where you have to be. That's where you have to be looked at if you're a Power Rangers mentor.
I need a custom figure of Splinter in the tube. I need it.
Or at least a poster to put on your wall. That'd be fantastic. No, I really need a statue or a figure of the what they did recently in the comics with the smaller Zordon tube on top of a robot body, where, like, he actually gets to be mobile again, but he doesn't come out of the tube. He's just controlling remotely a physical body, but his tube is on top. It's awesome. And he fights,
you
and he
sent me a
fights
picture
Zed
of
in it. It's so cool.
That's crazy.
Yep. I need a figure of it. I need it in the board game. Oh yeah, because you heard me pitch that to Jonathan Ying for Here's the Grid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you sent me a picture of it at one point. I remember.
It's so cool. And I could see the wheel spinning with Jonathan too when I brought that up. Because some things I would bring up and he'd be like, yeah, here's why that's probably never going to happen. I brought that up and he was like, oh, and then here's the like allies pack you'd put that in, and I'm like, that's gonna happen at some point. He's either already planning it or I'm the reason that happens. I think that's gonna happen.
You should just go with the latter, of course. Just tell
I'm
everyone
gonna
it was your
claim
idea.
it. Even if it's not true, because I have what looks like proof of it. I can show it to people and be like, "You're welcome. I made that happen." But we've got the dice towers, so at least we've got that.
Yeah, at least you've got a Zordon.
It's awesome. I have no time for anything right now, but I'm really wanting to do more Heroes the Grid content. I've been talking to DJ about this. Like, there aren't a lot of people on YouTube doing videos on that game, and I feel like there's this whole like little piece I could carve out for that. Like, if I had the time to do its own channel and put out at least a weekly stream or maybe some pre-recorded videos with like hints about how to do things in the game and stuff like that, I think they could do really, really well for that community. Like, the videos I've done on that game have done way better than I thought they would, just here on the channel.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. It's definitely a vocal, active community, it seems like.
Yeah, and even still, while you're seeing some people getting out of it because it's too big now. But it will continue on for at least 3 more years, it sounds like, which is madness.
Yeah.
Well, folks, thanks a lot for being here. We sure appreciate it. I will be back again tomorrow night, just after 10 o'clock. I've got a writers' meeting, so I'm likely not to be right at 10. But Austin and I, if everything goes according to plan, are going to do a watch party for the second Pirates of the Caribbean movie. I watched that this morning, but I had things going on, and it was kind of in the background, so hopefully that is not a terrible commentary. It's a watch party before it's commentary. And
but as long as you
knows
have
that
your
movie
bottle
really
of
well.
rum.
But that is a 2.5-hour movie, and I'm just busy. The thing that won just had to be the one thing on the poll that required me to do preparation. I was like, God, Austin, why'd you have to pick that?
I'll do it with him. I love that movie.
But
you can
it'll
just
be
relax.
Fun. And then, like I said, Saturday night, for anybody that wants to join the Superhero Rewind Selection Board, $10 tier on Patreon, we're going to be watching Men in Black. That's not a recorded video or anything. That's just us hanging out watching that movie. And my plan right now is to do a rewind finally. I'm weeks late on this, on Black Panther on Monday. But it's December. We're doing family stuff. I'm trying to get everything together for Christmas. So I don't want to promise rewinds at all this month because it's just a difficult month to prepare for anything, but I'm going to try. So that's the plan right now. Anyway, thanks a lot, everybody, for being here, and we'll see you again next time. DJ, I appreciate you, man.
Always a pleasure.
So yeah, I hope to see you guys real soon on stuff here on the channel. Bye, everybody.